So over the last 2.5 years, Star Wars Hunters has made so much improvement since it initially soft launched in November of 2021. It's such a better game than it was back then, even though it was actually already really solid, but that doesn't mean it can't improve even further. So today I wanted to discuss 5 things I would love the devs to either add or change in Star Wars Hunters to make the game even better. Now, the first thing that I've got on my list here is actually purely to do with the community side of the game, and this is that I would love if they could add some sort of guild system to really allow players to build communities and make friends within the game. Now, there are plenty of other games out there with guild systems, especially when it comes to mobile games. This is why it kind of came to mind. And often with guild systems, it gives you the ability to kind of join, for example, 5 guilds. You could make it as many as you want, really. And as an example, I could make a guild for the channel and the community that we have here, and all of you guys could go ahead and join in that guild, putting all of us in pretty much the same location. With that, they could then give rewards throughout each season, depending on, for example, how many wins your guild gets in total or something like that. It could even be to do with kills or the amount of goals in Huttball or just really anything that they wanted to do there, which would really incentivize team play and the community building aspect, which is really crucial for games like this, in my opinion. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it would be so much fun having all of you guys here in the community in, for example, a Sammy Boy Star Wars guild within Star Wars Hunters, and we're all kind of helping each other earn cool rewards. You could have like tiers per season. So for example, the final tier might be get 1,000 wins between you and your guild, and once all of us in total get 1,000 wins, or however many they wanted it to be, for example, we could then unlock a really cool skin or even just cool avatars and stuff like that. Even just a cool little banner or badge or something that they could add to the game to kind of show people what guilds you're in and what cool rewards you've earned, almost similar to a rank system where you earn a rank by obviously playing well and getting a bunch of wins. Overall, I think a system like that would be really cool for the game. It would add a very community-based aspect to the game, which, like I said, I think is crucial for games like this. Now, something else I would love to see them add or change is to do with pretty much larger or longer game modes. Now, I want to start by saying this is probably unlikely because obviously on the Switch it would be doable, but when it comes to mobile phones, they are obviously kind of lower power when it comes to the hardware, and they can't handle quite as much as a console, for example. So this is probably unlikely having like larger modes, but for example, there was talks of a 30-player mode years ago from Zynga themselves. They mentioned it, I believe, in one of the first investor calls, but I wouldn't even need like a 30-player mode. It would honestly just be realistically pretty cool to have like an 8v8 mode that's obviously double the current player count, and those games maybe last twice as long as current matches, for example, even just for a limited time mode or something like that. As much as I love Star Wars Hunters, the games are often very short. There's a lot of times that games only last for like 3 minutes. It kind of just depends on the balancing of the game. If you dominate a game, you can definitely win within sometimes even 2 minutes, honestly. Whereas the more competitive games do tend to last closer to 5 minutes. So I would just love some longer game modes, and with that, it would be cool to see some larger game modes as well with more players, adding a bit of a different dynamic to the game overall. Now, before we go any further, if you guys are new to the channel and you are interested in more Star Wars Hunters content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. There is plenty more content on the way in the lead up to launch, and obviously plenty more after launch, so make sure you don't miss out. Now, the last point that I made was to do with game modes, and this point is actually in a similar vein. I would absolutely love to see a few specific types of game modes added to Star Wars Hunters, those namely being a demolition or search and destroy type of mode from Call of Duty, and then also some sort of capture the flag type of mode. Now, especially when it comes to capture the flag, I feel like that is perfectly suited to this game. There is the trophy case game mode that in a way is like sort of similar to capture the flag. It's not quite the same, but it is sort of headed in that direction anyway. It's a lot more like capture the flag than any of the other modes, but a typical capture the flag mode, like it's been in plenty of other games in the past. You look at games like Halo and a lot of the older games like Unreal Tournament and Quake, for example. Capture the flag was honestly one of the most enjoyable and probably the biggest fan favorite mode in a lot of those games, and I think it would be perfectly suited to Star Wars Hunters. So I'd love to see that, and I think that is honestly pretty realistic that we could eventually see that. Huttball itself is actually not that different from Capture the Flag. It is just kind of a different spin on it. They've kind of got all the mechanics that they would need there, so I would love to see that added. And then in terms of like a demolition or search and destroy type of mode, search and destroy is probably a bit unrealistic because that's like a 1 life per game type of mode. I don't think that would really work work that well with Star Wars Hunters. But when it comes to demolition, as in having an attacking team and a defending team and having like the ability to plant bombs on the objectives and move on to the next phase, almost similar to Rush as well from Battlefield, a mode like that would be so much fun. Now there were, as far as I recall, some sort of rumors and stuff found in the data files for the game way back, honestly, in maybe even as early as 2021, but I think it was in 2022 that those were found. So whether or not that actually makes it to the game or not, I'm not too sure, but they definitely were planning or at least thinking of it at some point, because yeah, people were finding them when they were data mining and stuff like that. So that is also fairly realistic that that could potentially make its way to Star Wars Hunters. Now, something else I would love to see added to the game, and this is probably one of the more crucial elements, is private matches. Now, I don't think private matches is an absolute requirement for this game to do well. I think it will survive just fine without private matches, but it would open up so many avenues for awesome things within the community, as well as just simply being able to play games with friends a lot easier. Now, Star Wars Hunters is inherently a pretty competitive game, at least especially when it comes to the ranked mode. It's kind of perfectly suited for that sort of esports type of gameplay that is a lot more competitive. And even when it comes to the Ultimate Hunters Discord server, they've already started, you know, running tournaments and stuff like that. So private matches would make that a hell of a lot easier. And I remember way back in the Battlefront days, I used to run what was called Battlefront Duels, who eventually changed it to Star Wars Legions. But I used to run tournaments back in the day with some friends. We ran a 700 player tournament called the Battlefront 2 World Cup, and it was a blast to run. It was awesome. We raised like thousands of dollars for charity doing it, and it was one of the most enjoyable things I ever did with that game. But my god, it was a pain in the dick because we did not have private matches. So we eventually found workarounds, just trying to get people in Discord calls and searching for games on the same ping site at the exact same time, and eventually you would find the same lobby. But simply having private matches would be so much easier, and especially when it comes to a game like this that is inherently more competitive and more suited to that type of gameplay than a game like Battlefront 2, I think it would be absolutely perfect. Now, whether we ever get it, I'm not too sure. At the end of the day, this is a smaller scale game. It's not Battlefront, it's not Call of Duty, so private matches might be out of the question, but it's something I would definitely love to see, and it would raise so many awesome options for people to run tournaments. And even just like I said, with the guild system, for example, I would be able to do streams and play like me and a bunch of you guys versus a bunch of you guys, and have like a 4v4 doing it on stream where it's just all of us playing against each other. Stuff like that would be so much fun, and I would love to see them add that to the game. Now, last but definitely not least, this is something that I think is potentially realistic, but I'm trying to not get my hopes up, and that is the fact that I would love to see this game launch on consoles. Now, technically it's launching on the Switch. That is a console, so technically I'm already correct in saying this, but I mean it in terms of PlayStation and Xbox. Obviously, the Switch is a slight downgrade when it comes to those two in terms of the quality and just also the amount of people that tend to play these sorts of games. Technically, more people actually have a Switch than both a PS5 and an Xbox Series X combined, but it does feel like there are less Nintendo Switch players, if that makes sense, especially when it comes to like multiplayer shooters. And I think this game would be perfectly suited to be able to play on a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X, and with that would obviously come PC as well. Now, there may already be workarounds to PC because you can play it on BlueStacks already, and if it does get added to Google Play Games, I think it's called, then you can also access them through PC as well. So it may be playable on PC already when the game does finally launch, but I would really love to see it eventually make its way to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S. I know a lot of people will think that is kind of stupid. It's a mobile game. Why would they do that? There has been plenty of games that do that in the past. You look at a game like Warframe. There are, at this point, multiple games, like even Apex and Fortnite and stuff have got mobile and console versions of each game, and the game is made, for example, in Unreal Engine. That is something that is very common when it comes to console games. So many of your favorite games have probably been made in Unreal Engine, so it's not like they'd have to completely rework the game or anything like that. And like I said, it is already being made on the Switch, so it's not that different porting it over to the PlayStation and the Xbox. And I think that would drastically increase the player base, therefore drastically increasing the income for Zynga, and therefore making the game overall more successful, which would just be a win for everyone. They would make more money, we would probably get more content and more support for the game, as well as having more players and a really healthy player base. So I would absolutely love to see that down the line. Whether we get it or not, I'm not too sure. There's been a few little elements of the game that do make me somewhat confident, but it's more speculation at this point. There is nothing that really points to it happening, so we're just going to have to wait and see, but I would definitely love to get it on the PlayStation and the Xbox at some point in the future. But anyway, those are 5 things I would love to see the Hunters team add to the game over the course of 2024 and beyond. Like I said, I'm not too sure we'll get any of it, to be honest, but it is fun to think about nonetheless. And if there's stuff you guys would like to see added to the game as well, be sure to leave a comment down below. I can always try and pass that feedback on to the developers. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the force be with you always.